Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no me love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 18th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're getting all excited about all this NFL preseason moves as everybody is going goo-goo gaga over free agency, and they can't even sample the goods.
Yeah, and I haven't said goo-goo gaga in about a whole year or two, Big C, but it's all where love and war. I want to say Big C Sports is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. I know in today's climate, Big C, we still want to make sure we give out our Veterans Crisis Line for military veterans and also civilians, especially in this climate. Is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. Big C is really important in today's world. Your thoughts?
It's important in today's world, Charlton, as we look at the pandemic that is going across the world at a horrific rate, Charlton. Our veterans are still out there daily, and they're being forgot about during this pandemic. We hear no talk about what they're going to do for the Veterans Administration and the Veterans Hospital, Charlton. They're going to be overrun with this pandemic that's going on also. I know we give out the suicide prevention hotline number every day, Charlton, because so many of these veterans live in crisis situations economically, emotionally, and unfortunately many of them have turned to suicide. But we have veterans that are homeless at this time, Charlton, as this pandemic is going rampant through the streets of America and around the world, and they don't have the shelter to deal with it. And if something happens to them, if they can't get tested, no one knows whether they're healthy or not, Charlton, because they can't get into a facility. The suicide prevention hotline number is a great segue for veterans to get someone to talk to. But at this trying time, we need more than someone for them to talk to. We need for them to have access to the medical care that they deserve.
Yeah, they really do, Big C. I want to be a part of that. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. Also want to mention e-commerce is still happening no matter what the world's going through. Launching a real estate show the spring of 2020, already underway in some markets. The goal is to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's, just like car dealerships, and also sporting events. You can watch your properties on TV, and looking forward to being a part of that team that's already underway. Big C, sometimes we can use some levity. What is Goo Goo Gaga? I used to watch a show called Flintstones when I was growing up, and Bam Bam was always saying Bam Bam, but who was saying Goo Goo Gaga, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that was some dialogue that I used with my children when they were growing up, when you'd have them down and they were little, and they couldn't move, and you could manipulate them all that you wanted, and you would play with their belly and their cheeks and say that to get them laughing, Charlton. It was great levity to the children as well as me as the parent. It was just a joyful time.
Yeah.
And we're hoping as Americans to be able to get back to that joyful time.
Yeah, it's funny. I was eating some ice cream the other day, and my son was saying, "Dad, why are you saying I said, "What?" He said, "Why are you saying I said, I'm not saying anything. He said, every time you eat that Rocky Road ice cream, you go, I said, oh, because it tastes good, Big C. So I guess a lot of adults can do the same thing. It's all fair and love and war, man. Making sure we have fun as opposed to just, focusing on some of the tough things that are going on in life. I do want to make sure that as we talk about the worldwide major sports leagues, they take the pause. You know how we do the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. A lot of people are starting to do that now, with the outbreak of certain things, the COVID virus, COVID-19. But also, I just want to make sure, when you touched on it yesterday, and I've seen a lot more happening lately, Big C, Congress, the U.S. Treasury, talking about the $1 trillion stimulus plan, sending $2,000 to many Americans. I guess it's based on your tax returns. That you got to have filed tax returns. That's what I'm understanding. So people just can't stand in line expecting to get some money. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, any type of help. I mean, we're going through trying times, Charlton. As you look at the service industry, first and foremost, the employees of America. I understand employers are hurting because they got to have the income coming in to keep the lights on, to keep the power on, Charlton, and pay the suppliers. But they're not getting the patrons into their facilities, but the workers. We don't realize in America how many people work in the tip industry that rely on those tips.
A lot, yeah.
And when you close down bars and restaurants, Charlton, all of those type of service industries, people have lost income that they cannot recoup. And I know a lot of people work in the tip industry don't report all their tips because they don't want to pay Uncle Sam twice.
Right.
But, here's a time when, because of this pandemic that's going on here in America and around the world, that these people are hurting. We have Congress and the Senate sitting there that can't get on the same page, especially Mitch McConnell, holding back. Mitch McConnell is not hurting for money.
No.
Whether the country is open or whether it's not open, and we saw that when they had the government shut down, and you saw how those people struggled. Now the country has shut down.
Yeah.
This is time for the president as well as the Senate to take action, Charlton. All of them have been slow about their actions, and they're still blaming President Obama.
Yeah, they always try to blame the black guy. Isn't it funny? I was listening to some of my Republican friends, and they say, yeah, but what about Obama? Like, President Trump has been president for the last 3+ years, and they want to give him all the credit. I just hope that all of us as a country can pull together. I do want to say I was reading some information from the Washington Post, and they were providing information about the administration and congressional leaders. They rushed on today, Wednesday, to assemble a massive stimulus package because we're looking at something that could happen as bad as the Great Depression. That's what a lot of the fears are. I know they'll do the right thing. They print money anyway. It's not like it's backed by gold. And I would really love to see a lot of people get help. I was talking to a friend of mine today, Big C, in San Francisco, and they had even shown some areas in San Francisco, one of the busiest parts of the city, which is right by Fisherman's Wharf, and there's a big ferry tower where the boats can sail from the East Bay to San Francisco, and used to be like wall-to-wall people, and now it looks like everybody's gone. You only see about maybe 10% of the people. It's affecting a lot of people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, in that area out there, they have closed it down. They put a moratorium on the people moving that, they don't want people on the street spreading it. I saw a segment on the news, I think in Stockton, California. I was listening to the mayor there who had shut down that city for all goods and services, Charlton. So unless you're delivering something, you can't be out. And so that's what's really hurt everybody. As we look at e-commerce across this country, Charlton, it's shutting down for the good of people. And they're putting a 15-day moratorium on everybody in these cities about moving around. So, I mean, the people who can still get out, they're very fortunate. I know in the area where I live, most of the goods and services business have closed down. Restaurants, major hotels, Charlton. These things have gone by the wayside. And so everybody who is reliant on each other in those industries are not going to have an income. Regardless of the government stimulus package comes out, I don't know if it's going to equal that monthly income that these people are going to be missing out on. When you think about the average rent in a major metropolitan city, $1,000 is not going to cover that. And the average American does not have more than $400 or $500 in their bank account reserved at any time, Charlton, to cover situations like this.
Yeah, that's very well said, Big C. Representative Maxine Waters, a Democrat from California, she proposed today also just have the Federal Reserve send $2,000 to every American adult and even $1,000 to every American child until that crisis ends. So that's really about $3,000 per family. I mean, every little bit is just a Band-Aid, but it's amazing. As I told you, I run into a friend of mine yesterday, hadn't seen her in a while, but she used to film when I would do the MMA fighting, she would interview or film as I was interviewing some of the fighters, and how she was mentioning one of the parts of town that she works in, a lot of the kids, they only eat, okay, I can't say only, but she said most of them get their major meal from school, which is usually a lunch and a breakfast, but no dinner, and they really are feeling that crunch, Big C. They can use that money. Your thoughts?
Well, you got to realize that's been 70% of America, Charlton, forever, that the children rely on that breakfast and that lunch deal at school. You know, that lunch program was started by the Black Panthers years ago out there in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
In the late 60s, they started feeding kids breakfast and lunch at school. It eventually became a government program after they eliminated the Black Panthers, but they have to thank African Americans for starting that program for the kids around the country, Charlton.
Yeah.
But as school has been out, you think about the NFL. The NFL has always partnered with the dairy farmers of America to make sure that kids receive meals at school. So the NFL has always been a part of that, Charlton. The Players Association has always had that familiarity and partnership with the dairy farmers of America to make sure the kids get nutrition.
Yeah.
And so now the kids are out of school. Many schools have set up where the kids can come in and eat or pick up takeout, Charlton, and take back home.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. When you think about that $1 trillion stimulus plan, even Bernie Sanders was saying it needs to be too big. And the U.S. economy is it's $20 trillion economy. So every little bit helps. I just hope that they do it, sooner than later. In your neck of the woods, Big C, and I try to watch as much as I can to stay up to date. Ironically, I do want to say that I am very pleased to hear the conscientious people behind microphones now. I mean, everybody has their own style, but I'm hearing more and more sports programs, Northern California specifically, and even Southern California, they're actually kind of detouring away from just playing replays about games that happened 10, 15 years ago. And they're actually doing what Big C Sports has been doing really over the last 4 years. They're talking about things that affect real people. And I always believed since I was a little boy that every solution comes with dialogue. We don't have to all agree. But if we can have dialogue like what you and I have been doing, we're not perfect. But it's nice to see people that criticize what we were doing when we started. Now they're capitulating, doing the same thing. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, everyone has to deal with this, Charlton, this pandemic that's going on. It has affected everyone, from the world of economics to the world of sports. And, you could think a month ago when the president was bragging about how great his administration was doing, the best that America has ever been.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at, he's saying unemployment a month ago was the lowest in American history.
Yeah.
Unemployment now, Charlton, is at 20% in America in 1 month.
Wow.
Unemployment jumped 16% in America to 20%.
Wow.
And so as unemployment jumps to 20% in America, Charlton, and those people are applying for unemployment benefits, there's always a wait to get it. And you can't tell people now, Charlton, in that unemployment office, well, you have to go out and apply for, 4 or 5 jobs a day to qualify for your unemployment when everything is shut down.
Yeah.
You have to immediately, once they file, Charlton, give them that unemployment. You got to cut the bureaucratic red tape around here. And the president needs to do that. He's had these executive powers that he didn't know anything about, nor did his cabinet, Charlton. People have to go in and tell him what he can do because he's been slow at it. Because if he was prescient, all of these things he would have done last month, not this month.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I mean, and everything hopefully will get better in this country.
It will.
But you called the fire department after the house was half burnt down, not when you first saw smoke. That's what this administration is doing.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that's all part of it. I want to just get your thoughts on something, because you and I, ironically, did this thing on what's more important, your money or your health. And I hear more radio shows doing that same thing. They're about a week behind. But I want to say something that they'll also start talking about, that we've been talking about for the last week too. And I say this because the sponsors are out there, just like anybody else. You got to wag your own horn or wag your own tail at times. And when we were talking about what's more important, health or money, and that a lot of athletes, will they decide to play or not? Well, POTUS spoke today when he was asked a question on why athletes and not others are getting tested for coronavirus, and he said it's just, it's some people have a privilege in life, and we know that privilege is already there. So I know that's there too. But have you seen how not every team has been tested? If they have not made it public. I know the LA Lakers, they're doing that today. I guess they're having some tests. There's some other teams that tested. Oklahoma City Thunder, they did a test. Supposedly no one came back positive. So that's a good start. But if people are still waiting around the block, it's amazing how athletes do have access to money and power. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not that they have access to money and power, Charlton. They're part of that societal trait of that voodoo economics.
Yeah.
Those people in that financial echelon. So they don't have privilege. They have financial wherewithal. Every rich person in America, Charlton, has financial wherewithal. Everyone that's worth more than $1 million and have it in liquidity, Charlton, have financial wherewithal. So as the president is sitting there talking about athletes of privilege, he didn't say anything about his family. They're privileged.
Yeah.
Everybody that he knows and associates with is privileged. Everybody in our federal government, as far as Congress and Senate, Charlton, are privileged. So to say that athletes and use that as a moniker that, all of a sudden they're getting special treatment.
Right.
You got to realize every team around professional sports have tested their players. But there's a privacy thing. You spoke about it in the HIPAA law, Charlton, that they don't have to disclose what they've gone through.
That's true.
They don't want the public to know that they've been through this. It's just like the New Jersey Net players. How do you know that they found out that 4 of them had the virus? Because they tested them, and they let you know that 4 of them had the virus. They gave that public disclosure, but they gave it at the okay of the players. If the players didn't want it exposed, it would not have been exposed. But to have financial wherewithal, you have the opportunity to be tested. You can skirt the line. You can expedite things. It's always been that way for professional athletes. You don't wait in line at a restaurant. You don't wait in line at a movie theater.
Well,
you don't wait in line any place that people recognize you. Come on up. That's the privilege of being a professional athlete.
Let me ask you this question, man, because I just thought about it as you said it, how POTUS says, well, actually he said the buck doesn't stop with him, so I can't, maybe I got to change what I'm going to ask you. Let me ask you this another question. Who actually has more power when it comes to making sure that they're healthy? Is it these African-American athletes, and the owners are Caucasian for the most part? They have more power to make sure that their employees are safe than the President of the United States has the power to make sure that every American is safe. Why is the private industry able to get a test for their employees, and POTUS still can't figure out how to get kids from people that voted for him to get in the office? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, it's not the individual athlete. It's a thing called a union.
Yeah.
You have to understand what unions represent. When you have a union, that union can get things done for you because it represents power.
Yeah.
They have attorneys that get done what needs to get done. Demarius Smith and the group of lawyers in the NFL, as well as MLB, NHL, and the NBA, Charlton, all of these people have unions, and these unions collaboratively get together and say, this is what we're going to do. They put it to a vote, and the players abide by it. There are bylaws in every union contract about health, Charlton, and the ability to test. It's just like when the NBA said, hey, we're not going to drug test you during this
That's right.
because you go out and get as high as you want, and you're not going to fail a random drug test.
Right.
They gave the players a break, but they also gave the players the option to be tested, Charlton, in doing that, because it's written in the bylaws of the contract. So as you hear about players being tested for negative or positive, it's because of the union that represents them, as well as every union in the United States. When the auto industry closed down today, Charlton, in the United States, in 37 different states, it was because of their union. It wasn't the car companies.
Right.
The union said, we want to make sure that the employees are safe, so we're going to take them out of this environment. That was a union call, not a corporate call.
Wow, isn't that amazing, though, that the unions for sports leagues have more power to get things done than POTUS, who said that he can do, that he's going to solve the problems. And I just think it's not about jumping on anybody. It's about saying, let's follow the leader here. And
it is about jumping on somebody. When you're the leader of the free world, Charlton, the most powerful country in the world, and you called this pandemic a joke a month ago, that it would go away as soon as the weather got warm, that this was a hoax by the Democratic Party trying to hurt your re-election opportunity, Charlton. And if you hadn't been going through this impeachment, you could have been paying attention to this, but you went down to Florida and played golf 3 times during the impeachment proceedings, so you weren't concerned about what was going on in the world. You kept talking about how great the stock market was doing and not looking at the health of this country.
Well, I can't say that you're wrong with that. That's very interesting. When you juxtapose it to players that already know if they are okay or not, and then there are people who are voting for POTUS and they can't even get in to get seen. I do want to just mention that juxtaposed to the professional leagues that I've already found out within a matter of a few days, not a few months, as governors and around the country are trying to figure out what to do, watching POTUS have press conference every single day. Some of our top athletic teams, based on their unions and all the power they wield, they've been able to find out already as much as a week ago. POTUS is sending 2 hospital ships to New York City Harbor, also on the West Coast, to see if they can help out and administer some of the tests, even though they don't have a lot of supplies. But isn't it just interesting to me that we have sports leagues that are more powerful at this time than the federal government? They're not making excuses. They're not.
It's not that they're powerful. They're present. Have you ever been in a professional locker room?
Yeah.
Have you seen the number of doctors in a professional locker room?
Haven't paid attention to it, but I'm sure.
Okay, they have at least a half a dozen doctors. Every professional sport team has at least a half a dozen doctors on staff that work for those organizations, Charlton, throughout the year, not just during the season, throughout the year. So they have accessibility 24 hours a day to the most acute care in the world. These are some of the top professionals in the world, Charlton, that work for these sports teams. I was always blessed that, when I was playing decades ago, that you could walk into the locker room, the doctors were always there.
Yeah.
At the beginning of practice, they were there in the locker room, and you could go talk to them about anything.
Yeah.
You had doctors that handle every medical need that athletes have. So athletes don't have to go stand in line in a hospital, Charlton. They have the doctors on premises. If you needed a surgery, I had a knee injury in a game, Charlton. We flew back in that night. That morning, I was having surgery because I was checked into the hospital that night in an emergency situation, and I was second in line to have surgery. I never wanted to be first. I always told them to make me second. But I was second up that morning at 7:30 to have surgery.
Yeah.
Because the team has its own doctors, and so you get expedited through everything.
Let me ask you a silly question. Why do you want to be second to get the surgery, if that makes any sense, Big C?
Because I wanted to make sure that he had his coffee and his bagel, and if he had any kinks to work out, that he did them on that first patient, and that he was in smooth flow when he got to me.
That's very good. I want to be second. That's very funny. I understand that. Well, there are things that happen because of conversation. And just like I was saying, too, I don't know everything, but I'm trying to listen to people that have more knowledge than I have. But I do know something that I was told when I was in elementary school, that history will judge everybody based on did we have the right answers or were we just guessing. And I like the way that we've been talking about things when they happen. Negotiations also for this coronavirus stimulus proposal has to be signed. $1 trillion out of the White House. McConnell's talking about doing that. The focus is on cash to individuals. Big C, we know that's important, and small business. But what I also think can help a lot, too, because Schumer and the Senate Democrats' request of $750 billion to target the medical supply surge, child care, housing, small business loan guarantees, and expanding safety net programs. They're calling for a halt to all foreclosures and also evictions until at least the end of April of this year, to re-examine that as time permits. I think that's a step in the right direction. When people know they have a place to live, that's one less thing to worry about. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's something was halted, Charlton, days ago, that they halted foreclosures and evictions. HUD did that, Charlton, which is an American thing to do because, you're going to have even more people, Charlton, that are going to be facing that. Think about it. Mortgages are due. Rent's going to be due.
Yeah.
People are not employed. They don't have income coming in. So they're going to get on that line where they're going to be behind, and it's going to go against their credit, even when this stuff recovers.
Yeah, I just love the fact that they're doing that, working in the mortgage real estate industry. It always takes a bigger, broader approach, a macro approach to solve problems. And so I like when things are going in the right direction. I want to touch on, as we always talk about, and I always ask you, what league is the best? And you always tend to say baseball, even though I love football and I love basketball. But baseball, they pledged $30 million to help employees affected by lost work. Now, I want to just say this. I'm not saying that we're the only sports show in the universe that's prescient enough to talk about this stuff. But this just happened recently. We've been talking about this since last week when this happened. And I just think that's important because we're not waiting until we read about it. We were saying what needs to happen, and now it's happening. I'm not saying this because of us, but I'm saying that we're in the right path of doing the right thing. Now, Major League Baseball teams, they're doing the same thing we've been talking about for a week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not the teams, Charlton. It's the owners. Each owner in MLB has pledged $1 million of support to the workers that are not going to be working during this pandemic. They took the vanguard to say, hey, we have always been the leader in everything. We have the best union in all of baseball. We have the best of everything. We set the template for everyone else to follow. And so when you think about those 30 owners in MLB who have all stepped up and donated $1 million out of their pocket, no question asked, because they know those support staffs in those stadiums, Charlton, relied on the games being played. The owners are never going to be hurting for money. They're all billionaires. And so for them to give this bit of charity, Charlton, $1 million is great. I would have loved for it to have been more, but you have to have a starting point.
It's a start.
And I think they set a precedent. You have 30 NBA owners. You have 32 NFL owners, and I believe you have 30 NHL owners, Charlton. All of these owners are billionaires. They all have the ability to reach into their pocket and pull these funds out. They don't have to ask the players.
No.
If the players want to do that, fine and dandy. If they want to donate into these causes. But these owners have capital well beyond the wealth of all the players. Even if you put all the players' salary together on one team, it doesn't equal what that owner of that team has.
That's true.
So he can easily give away that $1 million, Charlton, to help the support staff in the stadiums and arenas.
Isn't that amazing? I remember even when I was growing up, just going to games, there's always people going up and down the aisles going, peanuts, something to drink, peanuts, hot popcorn, hot dogs, whatever it is. And I know we were talking about in Oakland, California, Golden State Warriors, they moved over to San Francisco. Those people that work those stands, they don't have those jobs unless they make the track across the Bay Area over to San Francisco. Also with the Oakland Raiders, now they're in Las Vegas. The people that work those concessions, Big C, they didn't bring those people to Las Vegas with them. That was hurting them. You have the Oakland A's, even though the season's pushed back. Those people count. I mean, those people matter as much as anybody else because a lot of them feed their families. It is good to see that baseball has a heart. I'm sure the NFL will come on and do it next. They might do it kicking and screaming, and NBA won't be too far behind, even though they may do it kicking and screaming. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's been pushback from those leagues, Charlton. We talked about it on the show yesterday, where the union for concession workers, I believe is Union 11 out there in California, where they had asked all the professional teams of Southern California, of Northern California, to chip in and give those concession workers some money to help them out, Charlton, during this time. There's a union. I mean, they got 5,600 workers in California that those people work for. We talk about the athletic unions, how quick it is for them to get something because those unions are strong. But you got pushback from those owners of those California teams, Charlton, about helping out those support staffs in those stadiums and arenas.
And think about the announcement, $30 million to help workers, displaced workers, as they deal with this, whatever's going on right now. I think the new stadium in Inglewood for the Rams and Chargers cost about $4 billion to $5 billion, depending on what the number is. So really,
we're only talking baseball arenas. Baseball owners are prescient enough to care about the staff that makes the ballparks work when their players are swinging the bats.
And I love hearing that because that affects a lot of people. And they're doing a lot. Even their stimulus is getting done before POTUS and his stimulus is getting done. We're going to take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We're going to come back, and I want to just talk a little bit about, Canada. Canada? They're saying people can't deal with Canada, the United States borders anymore. We'll take the Big C pause. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also launching a real estate listing channel the spring of 2020. Already underway in some markets. The goal is simply recruit 100 real estate brokers to list their properties on TV. The McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, and sports teams do it. You can do it too when you're part of the Big C team. I know we talk about Whoa Canada, and I really love our brothers to the north. I think we can learn so much about their healthcare system, how even many Americans criticize Canada healthcare system. Aren't they loving Canada now? However, the United States and Canada borders closed to non-essential traffic. Closing it to traffic is one thing, but I think we can also learn a lot from our brothers and sisters from the north. And unfortunately, we wait for a calamity or an emergency to emulate some of their plans for helping the masses. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Justin Trudeau closed down the border yesterday, and all of a sudden Trump wanted to say it was a joint venture. He closed it down. The Prime Minister of Canada said, no, we're not going to deal with the U.S. traffic coming back and forth. But you think about there's a Major League Baseball team in Canada, Charlton, and that team put forth the revenue to take care of the citizens of the city of Toronto that work in that stadium. But as you talked about Canada, they got the greatest health care in North America because everybody is on the health care system.
Yeah.
So everybody in Canada, Charlton, has the opportunity to get tested. It's not like here in America where it's, oh, well, I don't have it. What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We can all learn from our brothers up north. NHL reports the first player to test positive in the NHL, National Hockey League. And ironically, as you mentioned, that player, as we talked earlier, there was a reporter that asked POTUS, why do athletes get the chance to get tested fast, and first, and the general population has to wait? Well, in Canada, they all have what we're trying to get Congress to do now, make health care available for everybody. Before I even get into the NHL, we learn by talking. We learn by having dialogue and exchanging thoughts and ideas. As Mitch McConnell and some of them good old boys in D.C. who want to strip the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, you have people in Canada, those citizens don't have that issue. So when someone's going to vote for a person, why would we not see the benefit of having in place what Canada already has? Why is it scoffed on here in this country until we have an emergency? Big C, your thoughts?
Because it has the moniker of a black man on it, Charlton, and it's hard for old white men to want to accept that they have to keep mentioning his name for the rest of their lives. That's the reason why they want to strip Obamacare, because it is a legacy insurance more than anything else in their mind. And you talk about athletes. If you remember about a month ago, there was a player on the St. Louis Blues who suffered a heart attack the bench, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you think about how quick the medical response was there on the ice, having the team doctors and paramedics right there, Charlton, to assist him and to save his life. He's had a full recovery. So you think about what health does, the health professionals do in the professional leagues. And that's what the NHL had. The reason why, this Ottawa senator tested positive, and now he's in the same province that the premier is, Justin Trudeau. Both of those, he and his wife, are in Ottawa, Charlton. This is what I spoke about earlier. Because you're tested, and if you want to disclose that you came up positive, and they use the Privacy Act, where they don't give these players names, just like with the New Jersey Nets. Kevin Durant was the only one that wanted his name released. The other three players did not want their name released because of privacy, Charlton. But you have medical experts on the staff that allow you to get tested. I don't think either one of these professional athletes walked up to a walk-up clinic saying, I want to be tested.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. It's important because we can learn things. And as anyone claps anymore about get rid of Obamacare, we don't want Obamacare. And now they're complaining that they can't get to a doctor to get what Canadians are getting, which is health care. and not having to ask you, hey, what's in your wallet? Do you have medical insurance or not? That's important. Maybe we can learn from our brethren from the North. I also just want to mention that the Senators, their final 3 games before the season was suspended, before they took the NHL pause like we do the Big C pause, they were all in California. They were in San Jose March the 7th. They were in Anaheim March the 10th, and Los Angeles playing against the Kings, and that was March 11th. So the NBA's Brooklyn Nets, they had 4 players test positive, as you mentioned. They played at Staples Centers in Los Angeles that previous night, and then some visiting basketball and hockey teams, they do not use the same locker room, but they're around the same environment. So NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman last week announced the season was on a pause, like what we do, and they're going to still try to resume it for the Stanley Cup. But I know you talked about having to go to your doctor for an appointment, Big C. Isn't it amazing that if people just lived north, we wouldn't have those issues? Maybe, I mean, luckily we have insurance because we have a card and because we're in that system. But I really feel for people that are not in that system, and I hope that we can learn that from Canada, Big C, to make any sense.
Well, that country is what it is, Charlton. It's allowed health coverage from the time of birth. You have it to the time of death in that country, Charlton. It's what you pay your taxes for. They pay the same taxes we pay here in the U.S. It's just they choose to take care of the population and not privatize insurance up there for profit, Charlton.
Yeah, that means it's a societal, it's a consciousness coming to Jesus kind of moment, if that makes any sense. I also want to...
Well, it's not. This country is all about profit.
Yeah, it is.
And you think about our political leaders, Charlton, they have fought against free health care for all. I mean, it's always been something on everyone's political landscape about free health care. President Obama was the only one to be able to create it. It wasn't free. It just created affordable care, Charlton, where you got subsidies and it allowed you to be able to afford health insurance. But, you know, as we think about the privatization, we're looking at the hospitals in America. They're not run by the government, Charlton. They're not run by your state or your county or your city. They are privatized. They are for profit. This is the reason they try to get you out as quick as possible, and you get these exorbitant bills that come to you. This is about profit. And when you say money or health, if you don't have the money, you can't get your health, Charlton.
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. It is so true, and it's very sobering as we pay more attention to what's going on. NBA players also want to just mention this. Not that I'm grandstanding. It's out there, so I want to make it be known, because I know there's some people in media that say we should all just shut up and dribble. Shut up and dribble. They say don't talk politics. Don't talk about anything other than who won the game. And now they're all capitulating. NBA players, the great Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton for the Milwaukee Bucks. You have Kevin Love, Blake Griffin, as well as Rudy Gobert. Among a lot of other people, they're also pledging money into the hundreds of thousands of dollars to help in any way that they can. And I know it's not always up to the players. As that reporter was asking POTUS, why do players have the first right to get in line to get tested and even find out their results? And then the people that voted for POTUS, they're told to shut up and wait, Big C. And a lot of athletes are taking their own money, and they're doing even what POTUS hasn't been able to do, which is help people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in putting forth money from these athletes, this is what they've always done, Charlton. This is nothing new. It just happens to get blown up in the media because it's during this time. Well, when you think about all these professional athletes, especially NBA players, Charlton, who have foundations that they're constantly funding for the benefit of their community or the youth, this is nothing new for them. This is just something for the media to talk about at this specific time. Athletes don't go out and grandstand and say, this is what I'm doing and I need the publicity.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody has a way to give back. And this is when you really, again, I'm just struck by what you said about that hockey player, because I think about it, when he did have the heart attack, not only did they rush to him right away, if he's a Canadian player, I don't know if he is or not, a Canadian citizen or not, but if you are, then you're a rich person anyway. But just the fact that as a Canadian citizen, you don't have to get to the doctor hoping that you can survive, and the first thing they say is, who's your insurance carrier? That would be something that would be a seminal moment in our great country. I would love to see that, even for people that do a lot of helping across this country. I gave blood a couple of times in my life. I don't like needles, but you do what you got to do. I remember giving blood for a blood drive. Well, the Red Cross, they face a severe blood shortage amid the outbreak, Big C. A lot of healthy donors are urged to donate blood, and a lot of times people, because of what's going on in the environment, they're afraid to. So now even the Red Cross that's there to help people when they fall down, they face a severe blood shortage, and that's due to an unprecedented number of blood drive cancellations during this outbreak. Now, I know they're urging people to make an appointment because people need help, but really, when it comes to knowing if you're going to jeopardize your own health to help other people, people take a pause on that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, one of the largest gathering areas for the Red Cross, Charlton, is on college campuses.
Yeah.
These colleges have been closed down, so they don't have access to these students. And the students receive their financial benefit from it also, Charlton. But when you look at the large gatherings, and it's been limited to less than 15 people, 10 people in certain places, the Red Cross cannot host these blood drives.
Yeah.
So because of the government shutdown, it has hurt the blood supply across America.
Isn't that amazing? We're all one tribe, but I know it just dialogue happens. Everybody has their own opinion, but the more we exchange dialogue, I think it is better for a lot of people. This pandemic, Big C, we talk about how Major League Baseball, they're paying people. You brought that up just the other day. I know the NBA's pushed back on it. Hopefully they will do that too. The NFL too. 15 members of a Spanish club in Madrid, Spain, the soccer team, they said that 15 of its club members have become infected with coronavirus. 3 players, 7 members of the coaching staff, and then 5 other employees. Isn't the NBA more prescient now that a lot of those players, and in fact, a lot of African-American players say, I'm not playing. I don't care what you say, I got to do. And now, if some of these other soccer leagues throughout the world had maybe practiced that same type of, health over money, maybe we wouldn't have 15 people on a Spanish soccer team that are dealing with this. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's hard to compare that because you got to look at the pandemic. It broke out in Asia and Europe long before it got to the U.S., Charlton. So, and the NBA was not the vanguard as far, especially the players. The players were going to play. If you go back and think about it, LeBron James made the statement, that, I'm not going to play without fans. It wasn't up to the players.
Yeah.
Adam Silver closed down the league. The players just happened to do what the boss said.
Yeah.
If they were not going to take a vote and say we were going to suspend play because they were more concerned about winning a championship than they were about their health, if you're being realistic about it and listen to what they were saying.
Yeah.
Adam Silver took the precedent and say, I'm suspending play. And he did it during the middle of play. He said, when these games are over tonight, the league is over until further notice. That was the commissioner.
Yeah, the commissioner said that, but I do know they had a tip-off scheduled in Sacramento. It was the Kings versus the New Orleans Pelicans, and they were. This game was going to be tipped off, I think, about 7 o'clock. The player said no. That's before Adam Silver said anything because they were going to play that game. So the African-American player said no.
If you go back and remember, he sent out a text to all the owners.
Yeah.
Because I watched Mark Cuban, the Mavericks was playing. He was sitting at the end of the court.
Yeah.
When he got the text, and he said the play was suspended. Now, that game may not have been tipped off yet in Sacramento because Dallas was ahead of that. But that's when play ended that night. He sent a text to all the owners. So what the players were saying versus what the owners did and the commissioner did, Charlton, is a different story.
Yeah, that's very real true. It's about timing. But they're all on the same page. And that's always the right thing. Now, you and I go back and forth about different things. Everybody has an opinion, and that's okay. I know you're a big proponent of watching your friends like Sean Hannity and guys like Rush Limbaugh, and people can watch who they want to watch. The President of the United States, along with Sean Hannity, Fox News, shut up and dribble for you black guys. I don't want to hear your thoughts about politics. Laura Ingraham, I think she's your friend too, of Fox News. They act like they don't understand what xenophobia is because they still have this slant, but they've always had that. I don't know what it is about some members of our Caucasian brethren and sistren that still don't understand what xenophobia is as they try to make other ethnic groups the enemy, Big C. A pandemic is a pandemic. It affects everybody, irrespective of where it starts. Your thoughts?
Well, they have created this xenophobia in America against another brown menace. And the president has tweeted about it several times. He even spoke about it in his press conference today. He said he's not being racist. He's just pointing out where this virus started in China. Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham also reiterates what the president says during their shows on Fox at night. And you think about his base. They follow that. And this is frightening, Charlton, because it is putting the Asian population of America at risk. If you think about the followers of the president. And one of the things that people need to know, because in the last couple of weeks, Charlton, the amount of guns that have been sold in America in the Asian population has increased, depending on the state and areas that you're in, from 100 to 600%. Because these people are living in fear, Charlton, because of what the president is saying.
Yeah.
He is saying that the Asians are attacking America. This is what we went through in World War II, where you created a racial strife in a country and you quarantined some people and you locked them up in concentration camps, Charlton. Yeah. And this is what the president's rhetoric is saying, as well as that on Fox. And it's not news. It's just Fox talk shows with Hannity and Ingram. But when you think about people are going out arming themselves, and the Asians are a culture of people who have stayed within their communities, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you think about the Chinatowns that are in the major metropolitan areas here in North America, Charlton, and the great contributions that they do to our cities, these people right now are living in fear because of the rhetoric of the president saying that they're causing this pandemic in this country.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I remember the internment camps, and that happened because of a lot of xenophobia that was spread. They know what they're doing. It's all intentional. They know what they're doing. They're not that ignorant, Big C. I do want to just take a little bit of time to touch on a few things that are happening in sports. I know people haven't really signed agreements yet. They still have to do the paperwork. But Tom Brady, I guess there's a lot of reports that he's going to be down in Tampa where they don't have the state taxes the way they do in other parts of the country. So that might make more sense for him also. But what is Coach Aaron's going to do with a quarterback that's immobile, can't run around anymore like he used to? They don't have a top-notch receiving crew, and they have a quarterback that threw for over 5,000 yards. Brady's not going to throw for 5,000 yards, and he can't run. What are they going to do with Brady, and they don't have an all-star receiving cast? Just give me your thoughts on that, Big C.
Oh, Charlton, you're wrong about that. Tampa has the best receiving core in the NFL. You think about Godwin and Evans, both of those players were all pro. Mike Evans, since he's been in the NFL, has averaged 1,500 yards a season coming out of Texas A&M. He's been a perennial all-pro ever since he's been in the league. And Godwin has had back-to-back breakout seasons over 1,000 yards. You think about Jameis Winston throwing for 5,000 yards, There had to be some receivers that catch it. That's the reason why he had 2 all-pro wide receivers. And O.J. Howard is no slouch at the tight end position. You got to look at the derogatory part about Jameis Winston, and that was the 30 interceptions. But if you think about it, sometimes Jameis Winston threw for 400 yards before lunch. And so you're putting Tom Brady with those same weapons. Now, I don't think he has the arm strength that Jameis Winston had, Charlton, but the efficiency that he can operate with in that offense. And you look at Byron Leftwich's growth as an offensive coordinator there in Tampa, former NFL quarterback with the Arizona Cardinals and Pittsburgh Steelers, won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Charlton. The growth of this team, Charlton, with the young players. Jameis Winston was mistake-prone, and that caused him his demise in Tampa.
Yeah.
Because he threw a touchdown, but he threw an interception to back it up.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, he had 4 games that he threw at least 4 interceptions in.
Yeah.
And if you cut down those 4 interceptions in those games, Charlton, Tampa Bay was in the playoffs. So this is a move about efficiency for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're putting Tom Brady with the best receiving core he's ever had at any time in his career. If they consummate this agreement down in Tampa, Charlton, this is a team that you look at the division that he's in. He's going to have to face Drew Brees twice, a former MVP and Super Bowl champion. You're going to have to face Matt Ryan twice, a former MVP and Super Bowl participant, and potentially Teddy Bridgewater, who just signed with the Carolina Panthers, who has not lost a game in his last 5 starts. So you're looking at a conference, Charlton, that there's no guarantee that, Tampa Bay will win that division.
That's very true. And nothing against Brady, but he's not mobile, and Winston made a lot of those passes as he was running for his life and buying those receivers more time. But we'll see what happens with that. Also, there's another quarterback that has a Super Bowl championship, just like the great Tom Brady. Jacksonville, they trade the great Nick Foles to the Chicago Bears under his contract goes through 2022. Now, I thought Mitch Trubisky was a guy they said was going to be their 10-year player, but they've already given up on Mitch. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that they've given up on Mitch Trubisky, Charlton. This is the same scenario you had when he was in Philadelphia backing up Carson Wentz. You got to have an adult in the room in situations, and this is to make Mitch Trubisky play better.
Yeah.
If he wants to stay there and be the starter with the Chicago Bears, he knows that there's a guy waiting in the wings who is more than capable of taking the reins and leading that team. And that will motivate him to be a better quarterback. And if he slips, he knows he may not get his starting job back.
Yep.
Now, Nick Foles comes in. They restructure his contract. He gave up some money to be a part of the Chicago Bears, but they need more than Nick Foles in that lineup, Charlton. They need some wide receivers. They don't have any wide receivers in Chicago. You talk about a team that's void of a deep threat. You know, Allen Robinson is the best that they have. They were hurt at tight end all last year. Their running game wasn't efficient, but Nick Foles is not the answer. They need some receivers in Chicago.
They need him in Chicago, Big C. Let me just get your thoughts on something. I know race matters in everything that we do. All life came from Africa. I love hearing some of my AAU young players remind me of that, Big C, because they Google Dr. Leakey and Gregor Mendo. But the NFL has sometimes been adverse to that. What's next for the three African-American quarterbacks who were starters in the NFL last season? The great Cam Newton, former league MVP Cam Newton, and also went to the Super Bowl with the Carolina Panthers, even though they lost that Super Bowl in San Francisco to Denver. Jacoby Brissett, Big C, and also Jameis Winston. All three of these guys had the mobility that the league seems to be going through. So what's going to happen to them? Will they even get a chance to get signed because that window's closing, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the window's not closed. I mean, it's open for 2 weeks, Charlton. They will get signed. But you think about guys who were a starter in the league last year now being asked to take a lesser role. Two of these quarterbacks, Charlton, being displaced for elder statesmen. I mean, Phillip Rivers, 37 years old. Tom Brady, 42 years old. You're talking about guys who have 1, maybe 2 years left in their career, and organizations sacrificing for win now and no future later. That's what you do in the Brady and Rivers situation. Brady is more fit in his situation to win than I think than what Rivers is in Indianapolis, because he really lacks mobility, Charlton, and we saw the downgrade of him over the last 2 years, throwing over 20 interceptions in the last 2 years. But Cam Newton is healthy, Charlton. He can help a wealth of teams in the NFL. Don't rule out places like Denver. You know, the problem with those guys right now, especially Cam, is that he can't go somewhere and get a physical because of the coronavirus, Charlton. So it really hampers him as far as his ability to sign with teams. I think of Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, not Bridgewater, but Jacoby Brissett. Here's a guy who finally got an opportunity to be a starter in Indianapolis, really 2 of the last 3 seasons, and now you bring in an old guy who was on his last leg, and he was still up and coming. But don't forget, New England is there. Bill Belichick is quite familiar with Jacoby Brissett. He drafted him. And then when you look at Jameis Winston, people think that Pittsburgh might be a nice fit with Mike Tomlin. Ben Roethlisberger just restructured his contract. He's the same age as Phillip Rivers. Who knows how long he's going to be around coming off of that arm injury, Charlton. Quarterbacks don't always fare well after that. So, I mean, there's going to be opportunity for him. Everybody talked about San Diego, but I think that they're happy with Tyrod Taylor. They may draft a young quarterback, but Tyrod Taylor should start the season for the L.A. Chargers.
You know, it's interesting. I know you make fun of my friend Jameis. Yeah, he likes crab legs, and sometimes when you're used to people giving you free crab legs, he didn't know he had to pay for them. He thought they were already paid for. He did have the LASIK surgery. So now he can see if the crab legs are paid for or not. He can also see the different color uniform that he should not be going to.
He needs to go someplace where they're not serving seafood and serving steak, and he would complete more passes.
Well, he's not going to Kansas City because they already have the great Patrick Mahomes. So within the NFL draft coming up, also everybody's all excited about a half dozen young quarterbacks that would be in the draft. Are you still excited? Because a lot of these new guys, if Tom Brady can leave New England, anybody can leave anywhere, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we've seen it over the past couple of years, Charlton, a run on these young quarterbacks. But also, as you look at the run on these young quarterbacks, you got to look at which one of those quarterbacks are mobile coming out in the draft, because that's the new wave of the NFL, how things are going. When they took away, you know, being an assassin in the NFL, where you could just go and take somebody's head out, a la the late Jack Tatum, Charlton, where now you got to play like you're playing flag football. It made life easy for a lot of these quarterbacks that you could not pile drive them into the ground. And so when they get out on the pocket, we see that they have the slide rule where, you know, they can take themselves down and you can't touch them. This is what teams are looking for. So when you look at these quarterbacks that they're really goo-goo and gaga about in the draft, there's a couple that I would be hesitant about. I look at Jacob Eason up at the University of Washington. Really hasn't been highly mobile. Justin Herbert out of Oregon really hasn't been highly mobile, Charlton. These are pocket passes.
Yeah.
You got to look at bringing those guys in, Charlton, having an offense where you're not going to have a quarterback that runs. Joe Burrow is semi-mobile. The two kids that I really like coming out in the draft, I like the kid out of Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
People, as much as they want to talk about him, Charlton, he was number 3 in total offense in college football last year. You think about that, number 3 in total offense. Everybody talk about the greatest season of all time that
Joe Burrow had.
Joe Burrow had at LSU.
Yeah.
But right behind him was Anthony Gordon at Washington State, and Jalen Hurts was number 3. Jalen Hurts is the prototypical NFL quarterback of today. He is a Russell Wilson with a little more speed.
Yeah.
And so you really have to think about him. Jordan Love, I know a lot of people are high on him out of Utah State. Young man that was raw. He had a tough junior year because he lost his entire coaching staff and 9 of the offensive starters from the previous season, so his stats were down. But he's a quarterback, Charlton, that can get the job done. He's going to need some maturity time because he played in that smaller conference out there.
Yep.
But I think over time, 2 to 3 years, he could develop into a solid starter. He reminds me a lot of a kid that was at UCLA, Hundley, that hasn't developed. He's a backup in Green Bay, but physically same type of tools. But, hopefully he can develop into a solid NFL starter.
And we're all hoping for the best. Sometimes you have these dogs that run the Alaska and the region Wednesday as a dog sled race, 9 days, 11 hours, 1,100 miles. Nobody's concerned about dogs getting coronavirus. I guess it doesn't bother them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Iditarod, Charlton, in Alaska, one of the greatest single-man events that you think about in the world. And you think about what these guys have to go through in those cold, harsh conditions up there in the Northwest, up in Alaska, Charlton, and those dog teams that are dedicated, and the owners are dedicated to those dog teams, Charlton. They treat them like family. They just don't go out there and run them and forget about them. It's not like running a horse race where you only show up to see the horse on the day of the race. They live with their dogs. And a Norwegian who won this race, Charlton, you think about coming from across the world.
Yeah.
And no one was telling the crowds they needed to stay away up in Alaska, up in the cold, about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But you think about going 1,100 miles in 9 days and 11 hours. I mean, you need a car down here in the U.S. to do that. And he did it with a dog team.
He did it with a dog team. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on 2 apps that I love called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also, launching a real estate listing show in the spring of 2020. Already underway in some markets. Its goal is simple. Get 100 real estate brokers. List your properties on television. McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. And sports companies do it. And they'll start doing it again as soon as this pandemic is over. You can do it too when you're part of the Big C team. Really looking forward to that. Big C, say it ain't so. There's always something to complain about when people win. I know we think about the boxing event that happened, Tyson Fury. The anti-doping committee's looking at Tyson Fury and the allegations, just allegations. Anybody can allege anything. But I remember there was also pushback. Maria Sharapova, she would never put any kind of, bad Kool-Aid in her bloodstream. The great Lance Armstrong, you said 1,100 miles by a dog? Try it by a guy riding a bicycle. The dog did it steroid-free. I don't want to hear that Tyson Fury did anything wrong. The man lost over 100 pounds. And you would think guys that would be positive for any type of needle would be the more chiseled one. That make any sense, or am I wrong? Your thoughts?
Well, they're saying that he most likely took some diuretics, Charlton, to get the weight off and all of that.
Who doesn't?
I mean, you're out there and you hit the guy with your fist in a boxing match. So when people are sitting there talking about somebody had an advantage over the other guy, I mean, when I look at Wilder, he's not a boxer. He's a slugger.
Yeah.
He got his butt whooped in this fight.
Yeah.
Bottom line. So you can bring in any anti-doping thing that you want. Fury whooped his butt.
Yeah. And maybe he'll get the chance to fight 3 fights as long as we all figure out it's all fair and love and war. I really hope that the Congress can get together and pass that $1 billion stimulus package. Bernie Sanders says that he may be $2 billion. He may be, hanging up his shoes to Joe Biden. It looks like the writing might be on the wall for that. And before we close today, I really want to get Big C's thoughts in about a minute on what you would like to see happen. A lot of things we talk about come true. Yeah, I want to be a billionaire too. What would you like to see before the end of this week with this stimulus package, Big C? It has to be more than just words, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it comes down to Mitch McConnell, Charlton, and the president. The thing about this, you got to have an adult in the room. Everybody has been talking about what they need to do. All you have to do is pull the pin and take the vote, Charlton. That's the simplicity of it all.
Yep.
With the Congress right now and the Senate. The Congress is having no problem passing bills, getting them to the Senate.
Yeah.
The Senate is having a problem because they're trying to put a lot of pork bellies into these bills, Charlton, because they want to make sure that they get things for their constituents and lobbyists.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that the big companies are taken care of in America. You were voted into office about taking care of the American public, that you were working for the American public, and that's your job, not to work for large corporations. You can put all the money you want into bailing out corporations in America. It does not bail out the private citizens. For the first time in America, Charlton, the government has an opportunity to bail out the private citizen, and that's what they need to do. I know there's always been talk over the history of America about reparation. This is not reparation. This is about taking care of your own.
Sign the bill, Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we're all excited about the NFL still doing business as usual. The problem is the NFL, a lot of people are going to sign players and find out they got damaged goods in the end, Charlton, because you can't bring in players to get physical.
That makes a lot of sense. Sign the bill is just $1 trillion. You can find out more every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.